another edition of Talk About here on Shaw TV North Island. Another great show, the Suspension Bridge, the Elk Falls Suspension Bridge. We have Laurie Buza and Steve Watson. Laurie's from Rotary and Steve, you're from Hydro. Thank you very much for coming in. And as we're recording this, it's shortly before the public opening on Saturday, May the 9th. But we're going to tell also the history of this project, which is fascinating. And Laurie, you were there day one. When did it begin?
Early 2009. We were looking for major projects in the community, and we went up to Elk Falls to look at potential viewing platforms for a view of Elk Falls to replace the viewing platform that was there 50 years ago. And when we looked at that site and a couple others, the canyon was such a spectacular thing that we decided we should add a viewing suspension bridge to the viewing platform.
Well, that was we, but I gather it was you.
Yeah. But we got it done.
Yeah, the Rotary.
Yes.
And that's the, not the morning one, it's
The Rotary Club of Camel River is our name.
Yeah, right. And Steve, you've been with Hydro for a long time. You've been on the North Island for a long time. Were you there pretty close to day one too, I think?
Pretty much. I mean, obviously, the Rotary Club is incredible in terms of an organization and the vision, especially for Laurie. Yeah. But yeah, it was talked about, and we were involved at the early stages, and very pleased to be kind of a small part in its formation.
Oh, not a small part, really.
You know, it's great.
Yeah. Would Hydro have participated if the John Hart Generating Station renewal project was not happening, or is there some synergy there?
Well, I think this is all about opportunity and coincidences and those kind of things. The Rotary Club had their dreams of potentially having a suspension bridge, but yet parking was a constraint. Yeah. And so we were going to close the Brewster Lake Road for about 3 years, which is in place now. Yeah. And so with that being the main access into Elk Falls, we said, okay, let's build a temporary road and parking lot and bridge, and then remove it and have things go back to normal. So when Laurie and the Rotary Club came along and BC Parks, we started to collectively think, and we ended up coming down this win-win solution. So it's worked out very well.
Yeah. Now, there's quite a few people that contributed to this, and the Times Colonist had a write-up here. They got the date wrong, by the way, 10 a.m. on May the 9th. But the project costing $723 and some odd thousand dollars. Rotary Club is pretty close to $130,000. Hydro, $150,000. And Ice-T, that's the Island Coastal Economic Trust, $325,000. BC Parks, $32,000, but a lot of psychic energy, cooperation.
A lot of time spent by various levels of the parks, absolutely.
Any people in the parks in particular you want to do a shout out to?
Well, I think it wouldn't have happened without local representative Brent Blackman. He's in charge of that park, and we've also become friends, as Steve and I have, and we've done a lot of, basically he's on my speed dial.
Yeah, we were hoping to have Brent here on short notice, but he couldn't make it. But anyway, Brent, thank you too.
He's busy with some opening Saturday.
Oh, is there something happening?
Yeah. The other funder was Community Future
Strathcona, 86,000.
Yes, and without that initial money, that's what Ice-T matched. Yeah. So without that, this project wouldn't have got off the ground. Yeah. And as we got further and further along, because of we needed a parking, and Hydro built that parking lot, there was a trail gap there that we wanted to make barrier-free as well, which is accessible to all. Yeah. So our project grew another $80,000 to accomplish that. Yeah. And Parks contributed funding for that as well.
So in a way, it's probably closer to $1 million by the time some donations in kind and all that.
Yeah, and if you count the value of the parking lot and the trails and the bridge over the penstocks, it's probably a $3 million tourist asset that is being delivered on Saturday to the community.
Yeah. I know there were some, I wouldn't say problems, but some glitches in construction. We'll get to those, but did it throw anything over budget that you had to scramble for?
No, once we got through the upgrading that trail, I haven't got the final invoices in yet, but I believe we're going to be slightly under budget.
Wow.
But we also have a commitment to help parks raise some funding for annual maintenance for the next 5 years. So that's another fundraising thing we have to figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah. Now, the point that I wanted to get to, well, there's the bridge, and actually maybe if there's got some pictures, good time to show some of the bridge. But there's also this viewing platform that stretches over the edge. I gather there were some geotechnical problems. I'm not sure if it was the bridge or the lookout or both maybe.
Well, one of the
footings.
early issues to do something like this in the park is you got to have a geotechnical analysis, and that's where Hydro forwarded their study that they had done for the tunneling
Right.
program. So that helped us get a long ways away with our geotechnical, and we hired Michael Cullen, who is a PhD in rock, and I said to him, you must like rock. So he went through that area and told us where the rock fissures were. So it happened to be where we wanted to do our viewing platform. There's a rock fissure that's about 10 feet from the edge of the cliff.
Yes.
So none of the footings can be forward to that rock fissure. So we built the platform back, and we had to raise it up on a redesign and forward another 2 meters. So it actually cantilevers 4 meters from the footing towards the edge of the cliff. And then when you're standing on the left-hand corner, you are over the cliff.
Yeah. So if Hydro hadn't contributed the geotechnical, would that have been a deal stopper?
It would have required more funding, certainly, and it would have taken more time to start redoing all the work that they had done.
Yeah.
But they, right away when we got that file, where we considered putting it one time was 30 meters of overburden before you hit the bedrock.
Huh.
Well, that's not going to be a cable location.
Yeah.
You know, we still could have built the bridge there, but it's a different design.
Yeah. And if Hydro didn't have a community relations guy on the North Island that was accessible, it wouldn't have happened either.
Accessible and extremely supportive.
Yeah.
So, you know, we conversed a lot in the initial phases, and you know, just a complete openness to help us make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's been, between Parks and BC Hydro, it's been a phenomenal group.
Steve, what did you have to do to sell it to your people?
Well, it kind of rubbed off on Lori. I mean, it was Elk Falls is a spectacular place, and
Yeah, really.
I just like the concept. So who couldn't, you know? So within our group, part of it was the first step was the funding contribution, and former Mayor Charlie Cornfield was involved in supporting the Rotary, and so he met with myself, with our CEO at the time, and we arrived at the funding contribution. Then they had the parking situation because, you know, as Lori knows, there's about 75,000 users there, and they expect it to double, 150,000, and where people are going to park. So we were going to have the temporary one and for the project, but it made sense to make it permanent, so we had to have that process
Did you
go through.
redesign the park to make it, I mean, the parking area?
Well,
to make
originally it was going to
permanent?
be essentially a gravel parking lot,
Yeah.
and for parking, and then a kind of a temporary bridge across the penstocks, and then take it all out.
Yeah.
But with this one, even the parking lot it's a safety by design. All the flow is going in one direction.
Yeah.
Good drainage and things like that will last a
Parking
long
for
time.
buses, I noticed.
Yes, yeah, it's buses and RVs, so it's set up in mind for that bridge and the amount of people that come through. So, but that was an extra cost to BC Hydro through project mitigation and compensation. Through, you know, because the project is in the middle of the Elk Falls Provincial Park, and so we are going to make it a net gain to the park once the project's finished. But this is another element that we need to do. So, and of course, with the geotechnical and environmental studies, we're happy to share that. That's a lot of work we had done that made it a lot easier for the Rotary Club, so we're pleased to share that.
Yeah. Well, I'm a business journalist, and I have always followed BC Hydro's finances, and I could talk chapter and verse about their dividends. But I know that it's not easy to find money in Hydro from time to time. How did that work out?
Well, we have, I mean, the project's $1.1 billion, and
That's
people
the John Hart project.
The John Hart Generating Station Replacement Project, and people think, oh, what's another so-and-so, but collectively add that up across the board at your, and so we're, you know, maintaining schedule and budget, which it is, but we also have a mitigation and compensation fund for things like the city water supply, trails, roads, and those kind of things. So it just worked out that it just seemed to be the right thing to do, and in fact become a bit of a project legacy for the community.
Yeah.
And so we're going to turn over the parking lot and system to BC Parks once the project's finished. So yeah, it's a broader fit in that way.
Yeah, and he mentioned the magic word, water. As we're recording this, we had a little bit of rain and snow and hail in the west coast here in May. How's our water supply? I know the lakes are full, but did we get any snow up in the hills?
No, we have, our snowpack is pretty dismal. It's the lowest it's ever been for this time of year since 1981 when records started. Yeah. And it's actually slowly declining. And so the reservoirs are trending down. They have been the last number of weeks. We're running the Jerry Station about 2/3 of capacity, and we'll do that through June to allow the fish out migration, the salmon. Yeah. And then it's going to drop. So, you know, it's going to be, it looks, I mean, we don't know what the weather's going to look like this summer, but certainly for what we know right now, Upper Campbell, Butter Lake won't be ideal in terms of recreation users. Yeah. You know, it'll be lower than normal. Yeah. And of course, the river will be lower than normal too. So we're trying to balance that. But
for drinking water, there's still lots of water in the lakes.
There is.
Yeah, and the new intake that's coming in is going to be lower, so you'll be able to drain the lakes lower, I gather?
Yeah, well, you mentioned the water main. The city of Campbell River is building it right now along Highway 28. Yeah. And so, yeah, the city intake will be much lower, as well as BC Hydro, so that sets the stage for the upgrade to the dam itself around 2019 onward. Yeah. So they'll have a more secure water system, which is great.
Yeah. Well, that's an example of the synergies that are happening here, and one of the reasons I really like this suspension bridge project is the community involvement. I mean, like, here's What's on Digest magazine, Kathy Cardall and Brian's magazine. They've got it on the cover. She's in Rotary. They've got a picture on the inside with the new mayor, and we had a tour out there in December, I think it was, where the footings for the bridge were in, and people were just amazed at it. And I got a photo of the mayor out there too. But, you know, everybody working together, it's quite amazing. Can you throw any insights into some of the stories that you'd like to share?
Well, I think that's just our club, and as Steve mentioned, it's pretty phenomenal the way our club operates. We've been a Rotary Club since 1946, so we've done major projects what allows us to do these projects is our annual TV auction, which is done in this building.
Right here in this studio.
With Shaw TV's cooperation. Yeah. And within our club, we have such a variety of different people with different backgrounds. Yeah. So whenever we get to a spot, especially in this project, I needed somebody that had done requests for proposals and what's the process? Yeah. What do we want in that contract? Yeah. And it's a simple matter of 5 different phone calls, and everybody says, yeah, I'm willing to help. And the same thing in the community. I just need to put a plaque up there in the next couple of days, a permanent plaque. Yeah. And Gavin Hall Masonry is helping me do that. And it's for Rotary, I'll just do it for free. Wow. And so we get an immense amount of cooperation and assistance in the community. Yeah. And I think it's because of what we've been able to do with the funding that they allow us to earn.
So you've been at this project for 5 years, and this year you happen to be president. Yeah. I know, I think it was supposed to be completed last year. Things happened, and it's now this year.
I'm sort of a business background where you make a decision, you get it done. Yeah. This has been a lesson in patience. Oh. But working so closely with Brent at BC Parks there's a lot of things that you don't think about in the park. You know, safety, environmental issues, and you just have to consult all user groups. So there's a lot of process to go through. So I got a better insight into that. But yeah, it's taken longer than I certainly would have forecasted. But once you walk on it, you'll think, it was worth it. Yeah, because it is stunning.
I think if I can add, I think BC Parks deserves a lot of kudos in allowing the suspension bridge. I mean, it's great the community drove it and requested it, and they're turning it over. Yeah. But, you know, it is a Class A provincial park, and for parks to go down that path and take on and the maintenance of it is great. So it's well done.
Yeah.
We also piloted a parks use permit because they didn't know what kind of arrangement they should make with an independent body doing this kind of work in a park.
Yeah.
So we piloted that for the province.
Yeah. But when it's all done and the key is turned, and I guess there'll be a lock on it. Actually, will there be locks on it?
Nope.
Oh my.
It's free in
24/7?
perpetuity to all users.
Whoa.
It's like any other park.
So will the title then transfer to Parks BC?
It's their property, and so our parks use permit allows us to go in and work on that, and we actually have an agreement with BC Hydro as well, because part of the Millennium Trail is on their property. So when the arrangement in our parks use permit is that at the end of the construction period, when they're satisfied with all safety issues, we will gift it to the province, so it becomes a park asset.
But there'll be a sign up somewhere saying who did it.
Yep. And I'll be mounting that tomorrow.
Oh, good. Now, contractors, was there one prime contractor, or did you have a series, or you had to change? I'm not
Well,
sure.
we put out a request for proposal with a design assisted by McElhaney Engineering to come up with a proper request for proposal.
And McElhaney has a local office.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mark DeGagne is the manager and also a Rotarian.
yeah,
So we put that out and we got 4 bids back, and we evaluated those bids. And those bids were essentially for the elevated stairs, the cantilever viewing platform, and the suspension bridge.
right.
So we selected Pacific Industrial and Marine out of Duncan. And the owner of that had worked on the Haslam Creek Bridge south of Nanaimo as well. So we liked their proposal the best, and we wanted a true blue suspension bridge, not a fixed bridge. So they've been working on it, and Tice Poole was a site supervisor, also from Duncan, and he just did a phenomenal job of paying attention to detail, and he'd call me up and we should do it this way. So he was focused on the best thing that we could build.
Yeah. I was out a few times, and sometimes looking at it from the old viewing platform, you could see the guys working in their rain slickers way over there. But it didn't seem to be a lot of staff. Mind you, maybe I was just not seeing that. How many people worked on it?
Well, you got to go back to the manufacturing plant as well in Duncan.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, there's a lot of aluminum structure.
Yeah.
So the first part was to build the footings. And then all those footings need to be finished and then reshot with a level so that they could build the legs on those footings to match and build that whole infrastructure. So that's many people in Duncan building that. On site, there was anywhere between 2 and up to 10 or 15 people putting it together sometimes, yeah. Plus subcontractors to do the drilling, which is the big deal for the anchors.
Yeah, that's it. And there's concrete too, I think. Not a lot though.
In the footings.
Yeah.
Yeah, strictly footings.
How did you get the concrete out there?
I didn't. They did, one bag at a time. They carried it. They went to got a Kubota and drove it down and then carried it down the bank.
A pretty steep bank if you see
About a
some of the
30
photos.
degrees. 30 degree slope, yeah.
Yeah.
And you get in shape when you go up and down that multiple times.
You are looking trim, Laurie.
Thank you, buddy.
I went out one time and I had a walking stick, and that was really good. And then the next time I didn't. And it made a big difference to have the walking stick because of the mud and stuff. But
Well, the beauty is now you don't have to do that.
yeah,
So as soon as you leave the trail at the top, you don't touch the ground. So that's also less impact on the environment.
Yeah.
So the only thing that's on the ground is those footings.
yeah.
So it's quite an experience. And then the next phase, so they did that piece, and then we had to upgrade the Millennium Trail. We had to build a new trail and the barrier-free viewing platform, and we contracted that to a 5-star aggregate to do, and they did a phenomenal job, and even compacted the final crush finish free as a donation.
That's wonderful. Personal thing here. There was an upside-down tree hanging over what's now the viewing platform, and from the old viewing platform, you could see this tree growing downwards, and it was a big tree. And I got, I think, a photo of the stump of it. I don't know if we'll be able to get it in, But you had to take that out, I gather.
It fell down.
Oh.
Unfortunately, yes, because it was just, it was going to go sooner or later, and it just sort of impeded the view.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I found out about that after the fact, but
Yeah. Not many upside down trees you see growing anywhere.
nope.
Nope.
That was dead anyway.
It was, eh?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, looking forward though, you tossed out some numbers before about visitor count. And like, I grew up in West Vancouver. I was on the Capilano Suspension Bridge in North Van quite a few times. Really quite an interesting attraction. This one beats that in terms of viewing things. Steve, you had some comments about the view.
Well, it's funny. I guess I paid the admission, as Lori said, to get an early look at it. But Lori took me out there a few weeks ago, and it is just stunning. And I know Lori, I heard when he saw it, and you were talking a mile a minute. I'd be curious to see what the reaction is from people when they're coming back, because they'll just be, you know, it's harrowing, it's exciting, you know, it's straight down.
It's a long way
It's
up.
safe. The bridge kind of moves a little bit, but it's very safe.
Yeah.
And you're in this bowl, and you're suspended right in the middle of it. And the falls looking is obviously the attraction, but it's the downstream side. It's you know, about 100-meter straight cliff wall coming down to the falls, or to the river itself, and it's just captivating. You could spend, once you get over the initial rush of seeing it, to taking it all in, you could spend about an hour just looking around, and it's just remarkable. So I know, Lori, I mean, it's just you know, you have a vision and you try to get to it, but when that vision exceeds in the actual construction of it and presence of it, that's a pretty nice thing.
Lori has done an information sheet, and it mentions that the Elk Falls Suspension Bridge is 60 meters long and 64 meters above the canyon floor. Is that number right? Because it seems to me it's more than that, but it's only 64 meters?
That's what I measured.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's just a little bit shorter than the Capilano?
Yep, but we have a world-class waterfall.
Yeah, really, yeah. So
And it's free.
And take your
Yes.
cameras too. Yeah. Now, looking ahead in terms of the impact on the economy and on tourism and stuff, like your thing mentions getting cruise ship passengers from Nanaimo up here by bus and all that, but what do I'm sure you have a feel now for what's going to happen.
Well, the interest that we have in the opening is immense from all over Vancouver Island.
Yeah.
And I've just recently sent an email and information sheet to the Nanaimo Convention Center, and the manager's going to come up and have a look at it. And I think I spoke to them years ago about doing this as a trip for spouses of conventioners on a day trip.
Yeah.
So there's lots of interest in there. There's lots of interest out of Victoria.
Yeah.
It's going to be a must-see on Vancouver Island, no doubt about it.
Have you heard about, say, people from Vancouver making special trips to see it, or worldwide suspension fans?
I haven't heard anything planning, but on Facebook I posted a bunch of different pictures through the last 4 or 5 months, and I've got over 50,000 people reached, and out of 43 different countries.
Wow.
And throughout the summer construction period, I've run into a lot of people from Europe, and they want to know when the bridge is opening, and I tell them you'll have to come back next year.
Yeah.
And they will.
Yeah.
So there's huge interest in it.
Now, one of the things is what's going to happen on, I guess it's the north side, but right now you get over there, there's not much to do. But I see there's a reference where they can walk downhill and then they connect with a path that maybe goes down the north side of the Campbell River?
That's phase 2.
Okay.
After this is done. Effectively, there's a 18 by 20 foot platform that people can sit in, and at some point we're going to put benches over there if we don't have them already.
Yeah.
But we're considering a couple of options. One of them is to connect up to the Dean Martin Trail and create a loop.
Yeah.
The other option is to take people back into the old growth across Moose Falls.
Okay.
So you can do like a mini little loop through
Yeah.
the old growth.
Circle tours are great.
Yeah.
Even on foot. But are there going to be fences on the north side so people can't stray off into the bush?
I believe that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's a safety thing again with parks. I put my parks hat on.
Yeah.
Is that's an unknown area.
Yeah.
And there's lots of hazards there. It's certainly a slopey, slippery area.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yeah,
I've
some
fallen
places
and
you'll
I've
fall,
gone
you
over
won't
the
get up.
falls.
Well, that was
Yeah.
one of the, actually that was indirectly one of the reasons Hydro also supported this was the safety element, because there has been some fatalities.
Yeah.
People getting too close and slipping and falling. So this is to kind of take that away from that issue and going in there.
Yeah. Well, I'm almost out of questions and I'm almost out of time, but are there things you'd like to add, Roy?
Come and see it. You'll be amazed.
Yeah.
And
take your camera too.
yes, it's better. Any picture that you see, it's better to be there.
Yeah.
And
Is there
it's just
certain times of
spectacular.
day that?
It's always different,
Yeah.
and I think it's different in different water flows. The normal flow is 4 cubic meters a second, and that's nice, and you can actually see the bottom of the canyon and the rocks below the waterfall.
Yeah.
At 40 cubic meters, which you have some pictures of, it creates a mist in the air, and on that cantilever viewing platform, you get a little rain on your head on a sunny day.
Yeah.
And when it's flowing at 100 cubic meters a second, it's just roars. So it's always different. And
I was out there at max flow that day. There was a record.
Oh, in December. Yeah, I think it was around 275 or
and
400.
Yeah,
it was
quite
a lot.
something. Steve, anything you want to add?
No, it's a tremendous community asset that Laurie and the Rotary Club has taken on, and we're just proud to be involved to make it a reality. So it's great.
Yeah, and thank you, Shaw, for hosting the Rotary auction, because that helped pay for it too. So there we go. Thanks, guys. There's Talk About. If you'd like to watch this again, Shaw TV has a YouTube channel. If you Google Shaw TV North Island, you'll find it. Also, my website, www.crnv.com, has a list of the shows, and I'll try and get the link to this one posted as soon as I can, too. So thank you, volunteers. Thank you, guests. And thank you, thank you, Shaw, too, and Chaz especially, and Marjorie, and all the people that work here. But especially thank you for watching Talk About.